Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Bibliophile series. I've had to fill in this week, some emergency. Let's go through the article that is present and we try to understand whatever is mentioned here. Let's read the article. Oh, I haven't really given background. This is an article sourced from the Tribune, the National Daily, and the article is about lessons from a Himalayan village. The author, Vijit Pathak, is a sociologist. He had gone into the Himalayan region, gone for a walk. He had some musings that he has penned down in the form of the following article. Let's read. Recently, I visited a remote Himalayan hamlet in Uttarakhand. Hamlet is a small village. Not as a typical tourist in search of temporal relief. Temporal is temporary or something of short duration. Not as a typical tourist in search of a brief relief from the unbearable heat, but as a wanderer, seeker, or a student of life. So the author was not there with the purpose of tourism. He was there simply seeking the meaning of life. Okay. Well, I'm aware of my addiction to the privileges associated with my urban metropolitan existence. Right off the top of the bat, this technique of writing is known as addressing the elephant in the room. The author is making sure that his biases are being addressed straight away. And then whatever he says, you have to understand and interpret all of that in light of the biases that he has mentioned. So the first bias or the precise bias that he's mentioned is he's aware of the privileges he's accustomed to living in a urban center, living a city life. I've tasted the fruits of modernity, development, and a market-driven economy. Yet, I have no hesitation in saying that this time, this silent Himalayan village taught me three important lessons that my modernity or university education could seldom offer. So the author has also laid down the roadmap for how this article would go. They have precisely stated there are three learnings that he got, and these learnings were not ubiquitous. These learnings were not freely available or easily available. That is, you have within his university or formal education sector that he was a part of. But his time when he was wandering the Himalayan hamlet in Uttarakhand, there were three things that he learned. Most likely, the next paragraphs, when you're reading this, let's say if this was in the form of an RC passage in an exam, your expectation should be the next few paragraphs should be talking about those three important lessons. It could be in one of the two forms. First, the next paragraph itself will have all the three lessons, and then subsequent paragraphs will expand upon them. Or the first paragraph will mention the first lesson, then expand upon them. And the second paragraph will mention the second lesson, then expand upon it, and so on. Let's see what is the style the author has chosen this time. First, it was really great to feel, realize, and internalize the power of silence. Okay? The tranquility, the silence of the experience was something that the author appreciated because it has the positive word associated. First, it was really great to feel. Okay? Think of the noise associated with our urban metropolitan existence. The noise of thousands of vehicles running ceaselessly through our impersonal expressways and flyovers and causing massive carbon emissions, or the noise of television channels, loud music, and constant bombardment of WhatsApp messages causing some sort of psychic pollution. So the author is trying to lay down the roadmap for comparing within a hamlet in Uttarakhand. There was silence that he appreciated, and then in the urban life, there are cars, there is a lot of TV that is running, and then there is a bombardment of WhatsApp messages. When he says WhatsApp messages, this also gives you a sort of insight into this is a slightly old person. Otherwise, he would say social media, not just WhatsApp. WhatsApp and Facebook are the social media apps for the slightly older people. Okay. Think of the fetish for speed we have begun to worship in our times. We are continuously is without a pause, continually is regularly. Continual and continuous are two different words. And he says we are continually running after some sort of consumptionist mode of living. Okay. Is it that we are afraid of silence? But then As I move around this village without any goal, without any agenda, without any motive, without any preconceived notion of what I want to achieve, I begin to realize the beauty of the art of doing nothing. And this relief from my hurried existence makes me realize the beauty and power of silence. If some of us are accustomed or at least aware of something known as meditation, the silence, the absolute lack of thought, keeping your brain empty is what is preached about in meditation. And that is what the author is sideways referring to. Not that he's saying, let us do meditation, but then if you are aware of the idea of meditation, you will perhaps be able to understand what the author is saying by the beauty of silence. Side note, my own personal bias, I am not a meditative person. I don't engage in meditation, or my meditation is immersing myself in work. So I don't really I do not have first-hand experience of beauty of silence, but okay. Uh, the snow-clad peaks, the whispers of pine trees, the rhythmic play of butterflies, and the tiny yellow flowers, the slowness in the movement of an old lady walking through the rhythmic curved path, and the mystic presence of the fold of mountains. Everything around me tends to detox my mind. Detox is simply ridding your body of toxins. Detoxification is ridding your body of toxins. So the short form of that is detox. Just like short form of examination is exam, detox is short form of detoxification. So his mind that was polluted with all the noise, with all the WhatsApp messages and loud TV and all that bombardment, the silence. Now see here within this line, snow-clad peaks, the whispers of pine trees, the rhythmic play of butterflies. The words are fairly simple, but even if they had been slightly more convoluted, they had been even more descriptive than what it is right now, it should not be of concern to us because these are nothing but examples of the beautiful aspects of silence that he has encountered. These are simply examples. Even if in your mind you make a bracket, okay, these are headings, that is good enough for interpretation purposes. Okay, let's say you may understand everything else. I don't think anything is difficult apart from the mystic presence of the fold of mountains. Now, mystic is something that is not understood, something that is mysterious, of the fold of mountains. I don't understand the use of the phrase fold of the mountains, but okay, this is an example. That is how I will keep it in my head. After I'm done reading this article, I should ideally go and check meaning of this phrase, fold of the mountains. That is how I will expand upon my understanding of language. I became light, free from the noise inside. Again, this is not really adding a new point. This is expanding upon the same first point. He realized the beauty and significance of silence. The inner richness tends to free me from the practice of overconsumption that destroys the earth. Now, within this, hopefully, you're also able to appreciate there is a slight bias from the perspective of the author, wherein he's being against consumption, as in while he's saying he learned something by walking around in the Himalayan hamlet in Uttarakhand, he is also surreptitiously trying to convince you that the overconsumptionist lifestyle that we're leading is not right. I personally agree with this statement. The overconsumptionist lifestyle that we are indeed living right now as the human race, not an individual, and I am very much a part of it. We are leading a very overconsumptionist lifestyle. In fact, when he says this, they're continually running after some sort of consumptionist mode of living. The best example of this that I can think is previously when you wanted to have food from outside, you wanted to have food from restaurants, at least back in my day, my generation, when you were eating, it was an event. You knew, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks beforehand that on this day food from outside would be. But now, Swiggy and Zomato have become part of our daily life. There are instances where food is made at home, yet we order food from outside. The other, another possible example would be, let's say you wanted to buy something. First, we stopped going to the market because Amazon was present. It delivered stuff to us. Then Amazon was not enough. We needed the same day delivery. Then same day delivery was not enough. We needed delivery within an hour. We needed delivery within 2 hours, instant delivery, it was called. And now we have hyper local markets where delivery within 10 minutes and 15 minutes is guaranteed. If you take a step back, we don't really need that. But because we have an option to hasten the process, we choose to apply that. And any organization or institution that provides us with the option of hastening the process, we feel it is serving us better. Whether it is appropriate or not is not really a question that we are seeking to answer at all. Because if it is available, I will use it. Okay, next, second paragraph. Understand, when I read an article, I am linked to a lot of different thoughts that I have. So I will share all those thoughts with you. Second, I learned the art of relatedness. In the achievement-oriented, hyper-competitive professional world, we often carry the heavy burden of our egos, our degrees, our diplomas, our official powers and salary packages, or our wealth and status. And these egos disrupt the rhythm of holism, interconnectedness, and a network of organic relationships. Basically, what the author is speaking of is we are moving into a phase where your uniqueness, driven by your achievement, has become the primary goal of our existence rather than becoming a part of something large, rather than becoming a part. Previously, you wanted to be part of a group, you wanted to have. Right now, I'm fairly certain most of us, we are all achievement driven. That is fine. Being achievement driven is not bad. But on the altar of achievement, if you're sacrificing a lot of other aspects of your existence that give you happiness, that is what the author is against. I am not entirely in agreement with this idea because, see, uh, these are beautiful ideas. Chase your passion and follow your dreams. These are ideas stated by people who are already rich and people who are already accomplished. Even the rat race we are a part of, or at least the people who are appearing for chat are a part of, you cannot afford to have these beautiful ideas of work-life balance. You cannot afford to have the beautiful ideas of mental peace and quiet. Those things come when you have achieved something. Until the time you achieved it, the society, your family, your near and dear ones, despite the best intentions, will be wanting the best for you. And in their intention of wanting the best for you, you will be heavily engaged in competition. So this, while it sounds appealing, it is not really practical. When prices of items are going up, your ability to fend for yourself and your near and dear ones, it requires more and more effort always. And with the advent of AI, more jobs will become obsolete. So romanticizing the idea of interconnectedness at the cost of achievement is not really something I'm going with, especially not at the lower end of the societal structure. Okay, so I'll start the second paragraph again. Second, I learned the art of relatedness. In the achievement-oriented, hyper-competitive professional world, we often carry the heavy burden of our egos, our degrees, our diplomas, our official power and salary packages, or our wealth and status. Basically, we are not looking to be a part of something larger. We're always trying to one up the competition. We are always trying to win. We are always trying to put ourselves at a higher pedestal. And this separates us from the light. These egos disrupt the rhythm of holism, interconnectedness, and a network of organic relationships. However, in this Himalayan village, as I find myself amid the majestic mountain peaks, the dense forest filled with extraordinarily graceful trees, the vast sky not yet blocked by huge towers and gigantic skyscrapers, and the chirping of birds. This is again in relation to the line that we had read earlier in paragraph. These are examples. These are simply examples. I find myself uh, in as a part of a larger whole. So whether it is mountain peaks or graceful trees or vast sky or chirping of birds, I am a small part of a whole. I realize that it is futile to exist as a solitary, egotistic and possessive individual. Egotistic means somebody is always looking for benefit of oneself. even if it comes at the cost of other people. Egotistic means get rid of oneself. Now, those of us who have been very, very diligent and have read through Word Par Made Easy by Norman Lewis, perhaps egotistic would not be the word for you because this is the first chapter we cover there. Okay. And possessive individual. I feel that I'm not different from the entire ecosystem. Great. The author is acknowledging. The author is acknowledging. Oh, no, no, no. I feel that I'm not different from this entire ecosystem. To borrow Walt Whitman's poetic wisdom, I contain multitudes, and I cannot live meaningfully if, instead of merging with the rhythm of nature, I seek to manipulate and conquer it through the arrogance of neoclassical economics and cult of consumerism. In a way, it activates the ecological consciousness. I thought the author was acknowledging his bias, but not. The author is, honestly, this is very, very condescending, very, very condescending from the author. I feel I'm not different from this entire ecosystem. I'm part of something good. And basically, he's saying, he's looking down, not directly. It is not his, maybe it is not his intention to insult people who are hyper competitive, but it comes across that way. I feel that I'm not different from this entire ecosystem. I am a part of something that is much larger than me. I am a part of something whole. Okay. And then to borrow Walt Whitman's poetic wisdom, I contain multitudes. I'm not an isolated individual. I'm a part of much larger whole. That is the primary idea. But yeah, and I cannot live meaningfully if instead of merging with the rhythm of the nature, instead of being a part of the whole, if I seek to manipulate or take advantage of the situations I'm placed in, I am not really, I'm not really living in an ideal. Okay, this is just the first half of the article. Here, uh, we had the author was wandering around in Uttarakhand, not as a tourist, simply as a wanderer, seeker of truth. The first lesson that he had was beauty and wonderfulness of silence. We have vehicles and TV and WhatsApp messages bombarding in our urban life. But when you're here, you appreciate the beauty of silence, to enjoy being in tranquil atmosphere. Second thing he appreciated was being interconnected with things around us. Usually, in the modern day and age, we live in overconsumption. Overconsumption is the first paragraph. Second paragraph was more was we live an ego-driven life, full of achievement, chasing and trying to do well in office, degrees, diplomas, all of that. But then we miss out on connecting with a larger whole. And when he was walking around in mountains and vast skies and birds chirping, the author felt he was a part of that. And it sort of gave him meaning to life. Then he quotes Walt Whitman. Then he quotes Walt Whitman. And given that this is the last line of the paragraph, it will kind of be the summary. Even if you don't understand this entire idea of arrogance of neoclassical economics and the cult of consumerism, this is simply saying, don't be apart from everyone, be a part of something. Don't be different, don't be unique, be a part of something. That is what the author is going for in the second. Okay. Third paragraph. Third, I learned the futility of competition. As I look at the garland of trees, I realize that there is no standardized notion of perfection. In fact, each tree is unique and has its own story to tell. The gentle anarchy I experience as I walk through the Himalayan forest makes me realize the hollowness in our quest for standardized, homogenized aspirations. Say all beauty queens look similar, or all our school toppers want to become doctors or computer engineers. In fact, the striving for a perfect and standardized notion of beauty and excellence has created a neurotic culture that causes psychic anxiety and restlessness because of the constant comparison with others. In the natural world, there is no competition. A butterfly does not compete with a leopard. A tall pine tree does not want to touch the Nanda Devi peak. And the valleys and the peaks know the beauty of their coexistence. Okay. Now, the third point, in my estimation, is sort of derivative of the second point. You have to be part of something larger than yourself, interconnectedness, part of something that is larger than yourself. Now, the third point that is learned is the futility of competition. Each of us are human. But then this is also kind of contradicting what he said earlier. First, you should be part of something whole. There is no point in being unique. Third, he's saying everyone is already unique. So uniqueness is a positive attribute, negative attribute. I don't know what he's going for, but broadly speaking, what he's talking of is don't engage in competition with others because that is what is understood to be the highest achievement that you could be going for. Don't become a doctor because it is cool to be a doctor. Don't become a computer engineer because it is cool to be a computer engineer. Don't do an MBA because MBA is the right thing to do. Do MBA because it is your calling, it is your fascination. That is how you want to live your life. And then he gives the examples in nature. Butterfly does not compete with leopard, pine tree, as tall as it gets, does not want to reach the height of a mountain. The mountain mentioned here is Nanda Devi. The valleys and peaks know the beauty of their coexistence. Okay, so competition is futile, especially when different things have different purposes. Okay, so three learnings. Silence is great. Interconnectedness with items around us is great. And third, futility of competition. These are the three precise learnings that we had talked of earlier. And those three precise learnings in different paragraphs have been provided. Okay. Yes, my walk through the Himalayan path tends to make me a seeker or a wanderer, which is in contradiction to what he said earlier. First, in the first paragraph he had stated, I visited a remote Himalayan hamlet in Uttarakhand, not as a typical tourist in search of temporary relief from unbearable heat, but as a wanderer or a seeker. So, in the first paragraph, he's stating he was already there as a seeker. Then, in the fifth paragraph, he goes on to say, my walk through the Himalayan path tends to make me a seeker. Well, you were already a seeker when you came, but here you are saying it tends to make you a seeker. Now, understand, reading carefully and absorbing whatever is given text to you, you'll see small little contradictions cropping up everywhere. That is not a problem. Small little contradiction is mentioned. Let's move on. It is not like the author's point is entirely nullified because a small little contradiction is cropped up. It's fine. I begin to appreciate the value of these three lessons that no modern university can teach me. The power of silence, the spirit of holyism or interconnectedness, or not holyism, it is holism. I've never heard this from what I understood. My first understanding of this was being a holy or godly or saintly, that holy. But spirit of holism or interconnectedness and the beauty of gentle anarchy. Anarchy is a setup in which there are no rules, there are no pre-described tenets by which everyone has to live. Anarchy or a social structure is not great because that would mean no government, no laws. Basically, might is right, good rule. But then he is qualifying that anarchy by saying gentle anarchy. There is no precise uh, listing of this is how one should be living, this is how tall trees should be, this is how fast leopards should be. So when it comes to the human race, you have to become a computer engineer, you have to do an MBA, you have to become a doctor. So that sort of classification or that sort of bifurcation at an early age, if it can be avoided, that would be in line with author's argument or his state of mind. I begin to appreciate a mode of living that cherishes minimalism and simplicity. Well, I know that pragmatic economists and development experts would remind me of the limits to my poetic romanticism. Okay. I know that the pragmatic economists and development experts would remind me of the limits to my poetic romanticism. So, see, this is how arguments are created to convince people. I agreed with his first idea. Empty mind is great. Second idea, not really, because the third idea is a derivation of the second idea, not entirely. But here, he is delineating who are his opposition. He's saying the economists and the development experts would be opposed to me. Not really. I'm saying your intellectual rival in this argument is the person who has difficulty in earning enough money to support his family. Your intellectual rival or the person who will have an argument against you is the person who is seeking to provide for his family. Because for that person, if he is unable to put food on the table, if he is unable to take care of his old parents, or if he is unable to provide education for the children, you cannot tell them, no, no, think of interconnectedness. No, no, don't compete with other people. Don't try to become unique. What you are is enough. At that time, nothing of that sort will work. And this person is not a pragmatic economist. That person is not a development expert. This person is striving or struggling to exist. But then, the beautiful way the author has tried to delineate his opposition, pragmatic economists and development experts, completely removing the person who is desperate for survival. That is wonderful. Achha, would remind me of the limits of my poetic romanticism. Now, romanticism, one point of clarification, romance does not necessarily means only love. For some reason, Indian moviegoers have understood romances. Romance means creativity. Romance means a fiction. Romance, the best word that I can think that can replace romance is fiction. Here, it would be hypotheticals, right? Poetic hypotheticals that he is providing. Poetic is scenic or beautiful in imagining, but not realistic. Okay? Uttarakhand, they would assert, needs jobs and employment opportunities for the young. It needs roads, hospitals, electricity, other modern amenities. In other words, Uttarakhand needs what is valorized as development. Valorized is given a good name. Valor is bravery, and it is often associated with knights or people who put their lives on the line for their nation or for their group. So, valor, valorized as development is given a good name as development. And what he's talking of is jobs, employment opportunities for the young, it's roads, hospital, electricity, and modern buildings. Again, unless you have completely bought into the idea of what the author is saying here, you do realize jobs, you cannot possibly be opposed to the idea of jobs, roads, hospitals, electricity, and other modern buildings. Basically, you're saying let us not provide medical aid to people who are living in remote villages because it would impact the simplicity of the way they live their life. The argument does not hold. But see, again, this is the author will extend it to, there is a style of arguing called uh, ab initio absurdum, something of that line, wherein you extend an argument to such ridiculous proportions that it sounds reasonable. See where this is going. I read this earlier. The mushrooming growth of fancy hotels, resorts, and second homes for rich people from Delhi and Mumbai, the unplanned urbanization and resultant deforestation in places like Bhimtal, Bhowali, Nainital, Almora, and Mussoorie, the destruction of fragile mountains for building the Char Dham highway to enable affluent pilgrims to drive their SUVs, and the environmental impact of a series of hydropower projects, Uttarakhand is repeatedly witnessing the devastating consequences of this sort of development in the form of flash floods, landslides, earthquakes, and forest fires. Now, see, the form of argument, this is not this, but he has, I hope we remember the subprime crisis, where junk bonds, where junk financial instruments were paired with good financial instruments, and then they were given a AAA rating, and then the market crashed. Author has used that idea. They would assert Uttarakhand needs jobs, employment opportunities for the young. It needs roads, hospitals, electricity, and other modern amenities. And these are perfectly all right demands to have. But then, when you pair it up with the nonsense of fancy hotels, resorts, second homes for rich people from Delhi and Mumbai, the unplanned urbanization and resultant deforestation in places like blah, 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 the destruction of fragile mountains for building the Char Dham highway to enable affluent pilgrims to drive their SUVs. Understand, if he had only talked of highway, it would not be. When he talks of affluent pilgrims to drive their SUVs, he is now painting a word picture to show the Char Dham highway is not really serving a purpose of connect places. It is serving a purpose of serving the needs of the ultra rich. Okay? And the environmental impact of a series of hydropower projects Uttarakhand is repeatedly witnessing the devastating consequences. This is well-known fact that when you mess with the environment messes back in the form of flash floods, landslides, earthquakes, and fast floods. Right? Roads, hospitals, electricity, modern amenities, along with excesses of overconsumptionist attitude that human race has had. If you pair them up, overall you would say it is bad, but then there are certain elements. Roads and hospitals and electricity is not really bad. You should be providing that. There has to be access to infrastructure is not bad. Then, when you have second homes for rich people from Delhi and Mumbai, when you have resorts and fancy hotels and environmental damage being caused in the name of development, it is bad. The author has very smartly combined the two ideas and presented. Okay. It is sad that the legacy of the likes of Sundarlal Bhogna, Chandi Prasad Bhatt, who strove for pro-people, ecologically sustainable and life-affirming mode of development, has almost been forgotten in the hill state. Okay. Sundarlal Bhogna and Chandi Prasad Bhatt were most likely, and Sundarlal Bhogna, I think I still remember, but Chandi Prasad Bhatt I don't recognize. These are most likely politicians who were in power earlier, who came up with pro-people, came up with pro-people policies, ecologically sustainable policies, and life-affirming mode of development has almost been forgotten in the history. So the argument that is now making is previously there was development, but it was more in line with ensuring that development was not at the cost of ecological damage. But ever since these politicians have gone, or the new crop of politicians that we have, they no longer have a dual objective. They are solely focusing on development. They're solely focusing on economic gain instead of taking care of the ecological factors as well. Now, this I agree. Now, understand, you don't have to agree with somebody in entirety. You don't have to disagree with somebody in entirety. This idea I'm absolutely good with, and this is perhaps the raging argument of the day in the economics world. Is GDP a good indicator of economic prosperity? And it is ideally not, because GDP can go up even when distribution of income becomes more and more disparate over time. That is happening in US, that is happening in India. As in, for the last 40 to 50 years, the greatest transfer of wealth has been from the bottom 20% to the top 1%. They are getting richer and richer. The bottom proportion is getting poorer and poorer. It is being couched as development or more options, this or that. But if you look at the topic for another, the brain will explode when we start discussing how the products have become so bad. Previously, if you bought something and it failed within 2 to 3 years, you would blame the manufacturer, there would be an approval. Now, if something breaks after 6 months, you expect, 6 months is a good enough lifespan. It's very weird. Electrical items, headphones, laptops, phones, people change stuff so quickly. Anyway, so a, the author here claiming that we have moved away from maintaining ecological balance and also providing for development to a point where we are solely and wholly focusing on economic development, even at the cost of ecological balance. This is sad. This is disheartening from the author's perspective, and it is ugly. Okay. Next, last paragraph here. The climate emergency is here. It's quite likely that the global temperatures will rise by at least 2.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by the end of this century. And we are already living with the consequences. Deadly floods, wildfires, droughts, heat waves, new diseases. Let Uttarakhand not imitate this mode of development. Instead, the lessons I have learned from this silent Himalayan village, I pray, should give us some insights for saving our earth and healing our tormented wildlands. Okay. To the extent that the argument is we should be taking care of development while ensuring our ecological objectives are not really altered, then understand the play here. Another form of wonderful distraction in argumentation is the individual is seeking to provide for the family. The government is supposed to plan for the society, plan for the entire population. The article is seemingly putting the responsibility of making the right choice on the people. I pray should give us some insights for saving our earth and healing our tormented violent selves. I am simply looking to survive. I am simply looking to struggle to provide for my family. You cannot expect me to have the greater good and benefit of the society in mind when I am unable to provide for my family. This advice, this discussion, this entire point ideally should be made for the government. But then this is a style that is used in when it comes to pollution. Uh, Lots of large companies engage in pollution, but or the best example that I can think of is I live in Delhi. So periodically, every 6-8 months, we have a plastic bag ban here. Whenever a plastic bag ban happens, NCD officials go around. All the local vegetable vendors, all the juice sellers, they go there, they snatch their poly bags, they impose a fine upon them, take it, they do not provide a receipt for the fine. They take glasses and all other cutlery items that they can. Is they want to sell back to shops that them. But okay, but the plastic ban, great polythene bag, great, absolutely wonderful. But the Parle-G biscuit packet still comes in plastic. There is no ban, there is no extra cost imposed. The Kurkure packet still comes in plastic covering. No ban, no extra cost implemented there. The bans or the rules basically understand we have reached a point in our civilization where if you are rich enough, you can get away with murder. The small little violations are fine. Nobody cares. You look at Maggie packets and any sort of packet that you use. If it is from corporations, no ban on that. But for the local vendors, the ones who sell us potatoes and onions and vegetables, for them, it is banned to have plastic bags. It's fun. I'm not saying that the plastic ban should not happen for these local vendors. But what I am arguing for is there is a disparity in implementation, even if the intent is good. The implementation should be if Kurkure, basically, if you ban plastic, do it for all corporations, or at least make sure that Kurkure, the company Kurkure, Lay's or PepsiCo, I think it is PepsiCo. PepsiCo has to pay some sort of fine. And in response to this fine, they cannot increase the prices to the consumers. Because any time a fine is implemented on any corporation, what they simply do is pass on the cost to the customer. It should not happen. It should not happen. Anyway, uh, see, if I had to summarize the entire article, the author starts off by saying he went for a walk in a remote village. He learned 3 lessons. First lesson was beauty of silence. Second lesson was being interconnected, part of something whole, larger than himself. Third, the futility of comparison. Then in the fifth paragraph, his entire agenda behind this article became clear. His agenda was to argue for uh, development along with ecological balance. His choice of argumentation may not be something I agree with, but his broader point I certainly agree with. Development, but not at the cost of ecological balance, should be the okay. Then in the last paragraph is appealing to individuals. Again, not the target audience that you should be going for, but the point is well made. Ecological balance, not just economic growth, should be the target, and that is what I get from this article. Uh, Hopefully, you understand that when I read an article, there are certain other aspects that I'm thinking of, the ideas of the things that I'm aware of, that I'm able to link to, therefore understand it better. Additionally, I have a reading style known as the devil's advocate. That is my way of living. When I say devil's advocate is while I'm reading something, I know I'm supposed to agree with it because my questions will, the questions that I get in the RC classes will be in line with that. But I always try to think of counterparts. I always try to think of biases or how can I make this argument weaker? How can I identify the flaws in the argumentation? This comes from my experience as a debater back in my college days. But then this is very wonderful way of reading because see this way I ensure that I engage with the text. There is a to and fro happening. I provide my argument, they provide their argument, and I am able to retain more of the passage. Additionally, I'm not a lifeless blob simply going through this. Then, of course, there is a good exercise of identifying what is an argument and identifying what is simply what is an example and what is an extension. As long as you keep reading with, so as in, if you read a lot of articles with this mindset, I believe it would help you. So that is it for this article. So the statistical article analysis, the article was 520 words. Surprisingly, there were only 20 sentences. So these were fairly long sentences because the average word count per sentence was 26. The Flesh Kincaid grade level was 19.82. Now see, Flesh Kincaid grade level is an American metric by which they rank whether the article is grade 1 to 2, 4, 5, or 6, 7. The highest grade that they have is up to grade 12. Anything higher than that, 13, 14, 15 is considered a high level article. Now, this is 19.82. So again, very high level article. But then again, if you read it appropriately, and derive contextual meaning to things, it is highly likely you will be able to understand what the article entails. Now, there is another metric by which you can get the density and understand ability, ease of reading. Basically, Flesh reading ease score, it is minus 0.84. The Flesh reading ease score typically ranges from 0 to 1. Typically, it ranges from 0 to 1. With higher scores indicating easier readability. The higher the score, easier it is to read. Negative scores are possible, like for this article, but they indicate extremely difficult text. The score suggests that the text is very difficult. I've included this because it is the best available metric for measuring the density of an article or it's difficult to understand. But hopefully you realize the problem with all metrics, especially metrics developed in US, is they are dependent on this population analysis that to the best of my understanding, I'm fairly certain. Those of us, even with basic understanding of language, would not have found this article very difficult to understand. But according to Flesh Kincaid grade level, this reading is score, it would imply that this is a very, very difficult article. So I'm not really a fan of doing this. But then perhaps if we have going forward, you'll have scores like these available. So perhaps going forward, when this is done, you understand comparative difficult levels. Not that this is a very difficult article. This was fairly straightforward. I hope you learned something. That will be all for this week. Goodbye.